the PKD Dietitian Podcast. Today is a listener question episode. Chris L. from Rhode Island wrote in, "The first labs I always look at when I get them back are my creatinine and GFR. I feel that's pretty normal for anyone with PKD or someone who has kidney issues. I am part of several Facebook groups for folks with PKD and have seen lots of people get their GFR tested using a different lab called Cystatin C. My question is, what is Cystatin C and should I be asking for it to be tested with PKD?" Great question, Chris. I love that you're exploring your labs and looking to learn more about them, including potential labs to request that could tell your PKD kidney story better. In this episode, I am going to break down in simple terms what GFR is, but also creatinine and Cystatin C. Labs and their lingo can be intimidating. It can feel like learning a whole different language, but it doesn't have to be. Stay to the end of this episode to learn about a special offer I have for you to help you master your PKD labs once and for all. First up, what is GFR? GFR stands for glomerular filtration rate, so you can see why we call that GFR, a lot easier to say. This is an estimate of how well your kidneys are filtering your blood. Think of your GFR as a percentage, with the scale being 0 up to 100%. Anything below 60 means that your kidneys aren't filtering as well as they quote unquote should be, and there is some decreased kidney function. Viewing it like this helps to keep it super easy. Sometimes on your labs or in reports, you might see GFR written as eGFR. eGFR and GFR are the exact same thing. That E just stands for estimate, which your GFR is an estimate. Calculating what your GFR is, well, that's done using a mathematical equation. The factors that generally go into it are your age, if you're male or female, what measure of waste in your blood is getting measured, and that, folks, is either creatinine, which is generally the norm, or Cystatin C. Go check out NKF's GFR calculator. I've linked it out in the show notes. Try plugging in your numbers using different ages or whatever you would like to see how it works. And if your lab report that you get back says your GFR is greater than 60 but doesn't give you a number, awesome. That means that your function is rocking and rolling. However, don't you want to know where your GFR stands? Go plug in your details and you will get your estimated GFR number. If your labs give you a range, which a lot are doing these days, you can do the same thing. This way you have one number and you can track and trend it to see what's going on. Now, let's chat a little bit about creatinine and Cystatin C. Before I get into how they are different, I want to touch on how they are similar. Both measure waste in your blood. Each has a range that is reported on your labs that is considered quote unquote normal. That's the standard range, and it is the amount of both of these markers, the Cystatin C and the creatinine, found in blood when the kidneys are running at full function. If either the Cystatin C or creatinine goes above this standard range, it can be a sign of kidney damage or loss of function. Typically, it's the creatinine levels that are drawn to help monitor how well your kidneys are working. Lots of things outside of your kidneys can impact your lab results, especially when it comes to creatinine. That's why with all of my clients, we always look at what's going on at the time of labs, what's different more specifically, and their trends. Now let's get into a bit about how Cystatin C and creatinine are different. First up is creatinine. What is it? It's a waste in your blood, and it primarily comes from normal wear and tear of your muscles when your muscles break down. This is absolutely normal. Almost all creatinine is filtered by your kidneys and removed in your urine. Every single person has it in their blood. It's just a matter of how much isn't filtered by your kidneys and stays in your blood above a normal range. Creatinine also comes from the breakdown of dietary protein, primarily animal-based protein sources. Animal meat is one of the greatest sources of dietary creatine, and that creatine then converts to creatinine. For all of you folks out there taking or thinking about taking a creatine supplement, I would think twice before doing that or continuing. Let me repeat. Creatine converts to creatinine in your body, which is something that your kidneys have to work to filter. Now, here's what you need to know about creatinine. There are factors outside of your kidney function that can impact your lab results. And what I mean by that is there's other things going on in your diet or your body that can kind of give you a false high for your creatinine, and it has nothing to do with your kidney function. And we definitely do not want that because it is a waste, and if you get the false high, your GFR calculation is going to come in lower. Nobody wants to see that. For example, some things that can generate higher levels, and it's not specific to your kidney function, is if you're really muscular. And also if you're sick or have an infection or doing heavy exercise right before you get labs done. So those are just some of the things that can increase your levels that have nothing to do with your kidneys. There's also numerous medications that when you start them or take them, they will commonly increase your creatinine levels. And a lot of those are used with PKD. For example, tolvaptan and Genarcu can do that. There's also things that can cause lower levels with creatinine outside of your kidneys. If you are pregnant, that can have lower levels. And also if you have edema or you're holding on to fluid, that can have your creatinine levels go low too. But what I want you to take away from this is there's stuff that will impact your lab results that has nothing to do with your kidney function. So it's really good to know what can do that and also be prepared if you see that change. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why in the heck are we using creatinine to estimate our kidney function when there's all these things that can impact it? Well, here's why. The lab's widely available. It's easy to measure. It's relatively inexpensive. And it really is a reliable indicator of kidney function. And universally, it's used to help diagnose and monitor kidney disease. Now let's swing over to Cystatin C. Again, what is it? Just like creatinine, it's a waste in the blood. But this waste really only comes from your body's own cells. Since it's waste, it's getting filtered by your kidneys. Here's what you need to know about Cystatin C. Cystatin C lab levels are much less influenced by how old you are, what your diet is, how muscular you are, how often you exercise or when, and lots of other factors outside of how well your kidneys are working. So you can see that there's a lot of positives around Cystatin C for getting it tested because it kind of takes out the risk of having any of those other things impact your results. Now, do know this. There are some things that can cause Cystatin C to be falsely high or falsely low. That includes if you're a smoker, if you're on steroids, or if you have a thyroid disorder like hypothyroidism. So those can give some false results. A lot less false results than creatinine. As a practitioner who talks a lot about kidney function, here's where I find and research supports that it's beneficial to consider asking for your GFR to be measured with Cystatin C. It's more reliable if someone is obese, really with a BMI over 40. For my clients, if they're very muscular or weightlifters, sometimes we'll ask for Cystatin C because it's not affected by your muscle mass. It's also much more reliable with the very young and the elderly. I do not work in pediatrics, Other dietitians who do sometimes request it. I request it frequently for my clients who have a high level of protein spilling into their urine. So that's just an overview of when I think it's super beneficial to consider asking for a Cystatin C test. Now, the question you're probably thinking now is, why are we not using Cystatin C more often, or why has my doctor not recommended it? Here's why. It's not available at every lab. It's an up-and-coming, more common lab, but it's also more expensive. And that's really the reason. But you have the ability to ask for it and to ask if it would be beneficial to check. If you have any of those factors going on that could be impacting your creatinine on a consistent basis, it might be worth asking for Cystatin C. But definitely, if you are someone who is obese, very muscular, or you have a fair amount of protein spilling in your urine. And of course, this is my personal opinion. However, talk to your doctor about it. In summary, both creatinine and Cystatin C are lab measurements of waste in your blood, and they can be used to measure how well your kidneys are working and filtering waste. Both are used to calculate GFR, your estimated kidney function. Each can be impacted by factors outside of your kidneys that have nothing to do with how well your kidneys are working. Of the two, creatinine is used much more frequently because it's available and cheaper, and it is proven in studies to be a reliable marker. However, Cystatin C has far fewer factors that can impact the results. If you're one of my listeners who is thinking, man, this episode was my jam, it really helped to highlight what the lab is, how to look at the reference ranges, what could be impacting it higher or lower that has nothing to do with my kidneys, but also more information on medication and guides to talking to your doctor, then have I got a special deal for you. For the rest of this holiday season, so up until January 1st, I am offering my 100% virtual Master Your Labs for PKD course at 50% off. Yes, you heard me, 50% off. You can get the entire course, which is over 8 modules that are specific to PKD, for $23.99. Guys, this is a massive steal. Here's what I love about this course. It's going to guide you through 8 modules, and each one stands on its own. You can pick out the module on kidney function labs. There's one on bone health. There's one on your cholesterol lipid labs. There's anemia labs, and every single one is set up to learn about labs, kind of like this episode of the PKD Dietitian Podcast is. So you're going to walk away knowing what the lab is, what it measures, what could be impacting it, including what you're eating, your list of medications. There's really good guided doctor questions too. You have lifetime access to this program. So every lab you get back, if there is something in there you don't understand or you want to revisit, you just go right to that section and look into it. The coupon, if you're on the page of Master Your Labs, the coupon to get 50% off is HOLIDAY50. That's HOLIDAY 50. There's also a link that will take you right to checkout in the show notes for that 50% off. I hope you found this episode helpful. And for those of you that needed this episode and are going to be asking for a Cystatin C check, kudos to you. Until next time, I'm Diana, and happy eating.